Yes, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another yet session of Literature in English class, as sponsored by JCSF, JCSF Support Foundation, to help prepare students ahead for SSCE examinations, internal and external, that is WAEC and NECO, and also to help prepare them ahead for JAMB. Now, going further from where we stopped last week, for those who were able to join the class and those who were following us on the YouTube channel, last week we started with the African prose, second class citizen, written by Buchi Emecheta. And last week I was able to give you some information. I was able to give you a piece of information as regards who Buchi Emecheta is. I was able to say some few things about our biography. And apart from that, I was able to also introduce you to the book. I talked about the settings being Lagos and London majorly. Then and also there is a reference to the hometown that is being made mention of, but no action took place there. That is Ibuza. And Ibuza should be in the present day, if I'm not mistaken, either Abia or Anambra State. I think it's Abia, and that's where the writer came from, Ibuza. And besides the setting, I was also able to give you a synopsis. Synopsis means a summary. I was able to give you a summary of the major events that took place from the beginning of the book till the very end. And I equally talked about the plot, that is the giving you the information event there. And besides the plot account, we talked about the setting. I also highlighted some major themes that are obvious or relatable themes from my synopsis, where after giving you the summary, I was able to pinpoint easily some of the things that form the central ideas. That is the theme of this text. Now, running quickly from there, I remember last week I told you that I will give an highlight. I will give an highlight of the major event in the books, and it is expected of you not just to familiarize yourself with the major event that took place in the text, in the novel, but also you should be able to state the significance. You should be able to state the significance of this event, of this respective individual event, and how they contributed to the development of this storyline, to the development of the plot. You know, I said it in one of our earlier classes, or earlier classes rather. I said it that questions that are questions based on settings, questions based on themes, questions based on characterization regarding any of the recommended text should be nothing but a bonus to you. It should be nothing but a bonus to you. While talking about the characterization last week, I told you that as many as over 25 characters that we have in this text, we have just two major characters. We have just two major characters, and I believe you are all able to distinguish between a major character and a minor character Equally, you should be able to distinguish between a round character and a flat character, and how they can be used, how the two can be used interchangeably, that is round and flat, for major and minor. Now let me quickly run through the major events in the book. Do you remember this? I told you that this week we shall be looking at two major things, and that will be the end of the text. We shall be looking at characterization, and secondly, we shall be looking at the languages and style. But I will quickly run through the major events. So for those of you that have read the text and you've forgotten, by the time I go through some of the major events, by the time I give you an highlight of some of the major events, you should then confirm whether you still remember some of these events that I'm going to mention. If not, there will be the need for you to quickly run through the book again. Now, page 7 to page 17 majorly talks about a stubborn childhood, and that's the record of it talks about Ada's childhood. Page 11 to page 12 talks about Ada's first day in school, and that is a Methodist school. You know, one thing you should notice that Methodist school is cheaper to attend. And besides that, their neighbor, Mr. Cole, who is a Sierra Leonean, who lives next door, is a teacher there at Methodist school. Now, Ada's brother, yes, he is called Boy. He attends Ladilac. But Ladilac is a very expensive school. There is no way she can go there. And she even wants to avoid attending the same school with the brother. So that's the reason why she had her own initiative that, it would be better for her to go to Methodist school instead of Ladilac. And also, page 15 to 17, the lawyer Nweze that was talked about at the beginning part, at the maybe first 2 pages of the text, there was a song and practice for lawyer Nweze's reception. Lawyer Nweze is an Igbo man. He's an Igbo man who had traveled overseas to study law. And the women of Ibuza that are living in Lagos are practicing, rehearsing to welcome him. This is a very common tradition, a very popular custom, even till now. When someone travels overseas and the person is coming back, something close to a festivity, a feast is held. A feast is always held in honor of such person. That's one thing you should know. And you should know that this is happening before independence. This is happening in the 1950s. So women were not tied down with the demand of this present era. All these things women bother themselves about. We want to do this, we want to stand tall, we want to do this. All these things were in common then. So women easily celebrate men's success, not demanding for equal success, which I'm not saying is bad. Anyway, now page 18 to 22, that was when death shatters Ada's dream. Ada had the dream of going to UK one day. She had the dream of going to UK one day, but her father, who is the only one that shows interest in sending her to school, the father died. And like most orphan girls, what will happen? The mother had to remarry, and Ada's father's brother, that is Pa. I told you that Ada's parents are referred to as Pa and Ma. So Pa's brother inherited Pa's property, and which he claimed he will spend on boys' education, that is Ada's brother's education. So Ada is forced to go and live with his mom's elder brother as a servant. And so many things took place there, and that is on Pike Street. So many things took place there. There was, and in even at 11, as at a child of 11, there are people who have started mounting pressure on her to get married. That's the only way she can, well, that's the only way she can survive. So these mindset that it's that child marriage is domiciled or is dominant in a particular culture is wrong. Poverty can cause this, and it can happen in any region, in any part of the world. Also, other atrocities as the route to secondary school education, page 22 to 24. Things she did. You remember when she wanted to pay for the entrance examination form. When she wanted to pay for the entrance examination form, and she actually considered that no one would pay for her. Then our brother, the uncle, not the brother now, the uncle, who is cousin Vincent, that's the name of the uncle. The cousin Vincent had sent her to go and buy stick. Stick is meat. Can you hear me, Mr. Jason?
Yes, I can.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. So stick is also meat. So by the time cousin Vincent sent her to go and get meat from the market, then Ada, she decided, being a little girl, a very young girl who is so passionate about education, she decided to tell a lie that she had misplaced, that she lost the money, while in the real sense, she intended to use the money to pay for her entrance examination first. And I told you about the concept of presence, our chi, which can also be called our conscience. So she engaged in a silent argument with our conscience, where she was saying that, would Jesus condemn her for stealing or not? All these things and all that. But all the points of argument Ada raises with Jesus remained unanswered. And then what did she say? If you, for those who have read the text, our response was that was the trouble with Jesus. He never answered you. So Christianity was not was just gaining ground, and the faith the faith had not been deeply rooted. The faith had not been deeply planted in a little child as Ada then, and that was how she she decided to lie. She lied, yes, she lied, and she was what? She was punished. She knew that everything she did, every little sin that she committed in cousin Vincent's house, is either the cousin Vincent or his wife, they must definitely flog her. They flogged her. They bought koboko. That was the word that is used. They bought koboko. She was flogged, and she was flogged. So Ada decided never to forgive cousin Vincent. She decided never to forgive cousin Vincent. That tells you a lot again, that what about her stubbornness. She's a very obstinate child. Again, marriage, traditional sacrifice, Francis' departure for England. She eventually, marriage comes as an opportunity for her to have a home. So being a teenager, she got married to Francis, who is very close to her age also. And even though he has no money to pay for the bride price, 500 naira. So definitely that marriage of theirs started on the wrong note. It started on the wrong footing. Both of them are underage. The husband cannot afford to pay the bride price. The postponement of the initial wedding day. Even on the wedding day, the husband forgot the wedding ring, and therefore they cannot be joined at the registry. Or probably, as stated, it's even possible that Francis couldn't even afford what was it called? Francis couldn't even afford to buy the ring, so he probably must have lied that he forgot the ring. And also what was it called? Eventually, Francis, they got married, and Francis had to what's it called? Francis had to travel to England. And before traveling to England, Ada was already working. Ada was already working in a library. Ada was already working in a library, and in fact, she made the largest donation to help support funding for the traveling to UK. So Francis was planning on traveling to UK, and he wants his wife to remain in Lagos because she has a what? Because she has a job already, which was paying her. That shows that. That even also shows that he is not ready to take responsibility. So, and Ada, being a very smart girl, understood well that if she had decided to stay back in London, that could be the end of her, or that could be a doom for her, in the sense that Francis might get to UK, things might blossom for him, and he will what? He will remarry. By the time he remarries, and that means that Ada will be forgotten here in Nigeria. So that was what made Ada to also make what? To make effort, made effort to agree that Francis should go first, and when she makes enough money, she will keep sending money. When she makes enough money, she would join. She would join him there rather. She would join him there, and you remember there is a particular there is a particular moment when Ada used a biblical approach. And this was what gave reason to her idea, where she said that be as cunning as a serpent, but as harmless as a dove. So the fact is that Francis and his parents want her to stay in Nigeria and finance her husband, and also make occasional gifts to her parent-in-law, help in the payment of the school fees of her husband's female sibling, and look after Francis and Ada's young children. They already had 2 children in Nigeria already. That was the reason why they intended to keep her. You can see they want to use her. They want to manipulate and use her. So eventually later on, page 34 to 38 to 41, Ada also arrived in Lagos. You should read about the weather. England gave Ada a cold welcome. It wasn't a straight flight. She had to stop in Ghana, stop in Sierra Leone, Las Palmas, Canary Island, and the likes. But eventually she got to England, and the weather was too cold. By the time Ada got to UK, by the time Ada arrived in UK and Francis picked her up, Francis had changed. Francis had become accustomed to some of the Western cultures. By the time they got there, it looked strange to Ada, because the first thing Francis did was to kiss Ada in public with everybody looking. So it is an act for which Ada's mother-in-law could have made sacrifices. They believe that something as such, which normally should be a romantic gesture, they believe that it's somewhat obscene for them to be doing somewhat obscene to be done in public. Let me put it that way. So another thing was that by the time they got there was a disagreement already. There was a disagreement, and what was the disagreement? Ada arrived in a very poor house. in a poor residence, or let me say bad residence, which made Ada shocked and asked that, are we actually going to live here? Not as a result of the segregation of the blacks in the UK then. If you are financially okay, you can still live in what? In relatively good places where there is light, where there is water, and where there is all things. But it turns out that all the money Ada had been sending in all this while to support Francis and to ensure that Francis gets a very good accommodation, more probably had been lavished on something else. Being a typical strong woman, Ada started working in UK again, so as to support our children, to support the family. So she started working at Finchley Central Library. And the chief librarian was Mrs. Conrad, who happens to be from Czech Republic. So North Finley is the library where Ada started working, and she started making money. So as a result of her inability to cope working with children or caring for her children and at the same time working, she began to look for a foster mother, a foster mother that is someone who can take care of the little child. The older ones are okay, but she has a little child called Titi, who was 18 months old. Titi Obi. They live in, that's another thing. When they ask you questions like, how does culture interplay in the text? They are Igbos living in a Yoruba man's land in Lagos. And as a result of that, they picked a name Titi for their child, except if Titi means something in Igbo. I don't know, but I know that Titi happens to be a Yoruba name. Titi, maybe Titi Layo or Titi Lokwe or something. But possibly it might mean something else in Igbo. So pardon my forwardness if I'm wrong. I'm not sure. Besides that, since they were unable to get an applicant, only Janet showed up. And Janet is Mr. Babalola's wife. And Janet is Ada's wife. It relieved her for a period before they eventually got what's the name? Before they eventually got Trudy, the lady who would eventually be accused of being in a relationship with Francis, Ada's husband, which eventually made Ada to sack her. So the name of Ada's two children were Titi and Vicky. They were there growing together, but Titi would always maltreat. Titi will always maltreat them and feed them from dirty surroundings. Let me put it that way. Then it continues to manifest that Ada is an uncooperative husband. Tell him to work, he won't work. Tell him to get a job, and he keeps failing his exam. He keeps failing his accounting examination, which made him unfit to get a professional job that he demands. So, but at least other men are doing many jobs to support their family. This is something Francis is not interested in doing. And we got to a point, Vicky was sick, and it was and she was taken to what was it called? I think the children were sick twice. Once they were treated by a Chinese doctor because it was Christmas time and they weren't attended to at the hospital they went to. Okay, so Vicky was sick. An ambulance was called, which took Vicky to Royal Free Hospital. But Royal Free Hospital, free in the name in the hospital was just for fun. They definitely would have to pay. So Ada and Francis bicker, and neighbor hits them. So Vicky had been diagnosed with what's it called, meningitis, and Ada accused Trudy as being the cause for the ailment, because she has always been fending for the children in an unclean environment. Later on, from ghetto, they had to move from one ghetto to another ghetto. From where they were living before, they had to move down to Ashdown Street. They had to move down to Ashdown Street, and the disagreement, the war between them keeps increasing. Let me put it that way. It keeps increasing is a bad word. It kept on intensifying. So so they had to settle. They had to move away from Ashdown again, and to stay with the what's it called? With the nobles. Mr. Panoble, they are also Nigerians. Happy. They had to stay with Mr. Noble, and it was confirmed that a little time when they got there that Ada was again pregnant. So Ada was again pregnant, expecting a baby boy of Francis. He's convinced that in the last syllabus that was used, that talks about the picture or the portrait of a frustrated young man. It's one of the drama texts used in the last syllabus. I've forgotten. That is just to, I'm just telling you this to help you picture a scenario of a frustrated young man who, despite his little education, keeps on getting rejected from job with his life. With this 100% belief, with this dedicated mindset that education is what will take him away from the poverty line, that by getting educated, his struggles will be over. But this actually wasn't the case. With Francis. Things kept getting bad and bad. So Ada was hospitalized, and at the moment when the third child would be delivered, and the third child was named Bubu, the child was delivered at University College Hospital. And at that time, that was the only time, because Ada was not working at that moment. That was the only time Francis was forced. That was the only time Francis was forced to take a job. At least, so that he will also be able to, to do something. So he took a job as a postman for 2 weeks. So he took a job as a postman for 2 weeks, and in fact, Ada was presented to feel a huge pity for the husband. And eventually, by the time Ada was done, by the time the delivery was by the time the delivery was done, rather, or by the time she delivered, the relationship between them had already deteriorated. But even despite that, Ada got pregnant again. Ada got pregnant again, and she consulted an Indian doctor to help terminate the pregnancy. So the blame of not doing family planning sets in now, and the Indian doctor actually gave her some white pills to so as to check the pregnancy. She didn't tell the husband, because the husband would, she was afraid that the husband would definitely spread the news across to his relatives and people and people around. Now, moving on to the final event in the text. Moving on to the final event in the text, that was the burning of Ada's manuscript and the collapse of their marriage. So Bubu, that is the last child, Bubu was what they were expecting. The pregnancy pill didn't work, so they were expecting the child to be delivered in the spring. That's in May, and she believed that she was placed on 5-month rest, which made her to do nothing than to keep working on her writing, on the book she was writing. She was writing a book, and the manuscript, she was already done with the manuscript. And the title of the book she was writing was The Bride Price. And for those of you who know this author, this writer, Buchi Emecheta, you will discover that the title, that same manuscript, The Bride Price, was among the text. The Bride Price was among the text written by, among the novels that was written and published by Buchi Emecheta, which goes on to convince us that the Bride Price, or that this text, that the character Ada in this text referred to the author, or referred to the novelist herself. So after finishing the manuscript, she gave it to the husband, believing that the husband would encourage and support her. But what happened? The husband burned the manuscript. So this led to the collapse in their what? This led to the collapse in their. This led to the collapse of their marriage, and this text that that Frances burned was regarded to as Ada's brainchild. It was the first novel she ever thought of documenting. So the collapse of the marriage is due to Frances' inability to accept change. At times, it's quite possible that the wife will be more blessed than the husband. So at times, as a man, it is expected of you to support. It is expected of you to support this dream, or the ambitions of your wife. So the themes, I already highlighted them. For those of you who are interested in the themes again, you can visit the YouTube channel and look at and watch our last class. So as regards the character, we've said a lot of things about Ada, and we said a lot of things about Frances. And you will by now obviously know the significance of these two major characters in the text. Last week also, I mentioned all the minor characters in the text. You can check back, and you can check the the YouTube channel for all the characters I made mention of, and try to do a more personalized reading on the roles that this character played. Now, talking about the language and style, first thing we will consider is clarity of expression. The language used in this text is very simple, very, very simple. It is very straightforward. A child in, if I'm not exaggerating, a child in primary 4, okay, they use grade now. A child in grade 4 will read this text and understand. A child in grade 4, grade 5 will read the text, second-class citizen, and understand everything about the text. That is to tell you that the language used is simple. Even despite the conflict that took place, the novel is built on the novel is built on conflict. From Ada's parent to Ada and his brother, to Ada and the marriage, to Ada and Francis. The novel is obviously built on conflict, but despite all this, there is clarity of what? There is clarity of expression. Then the point of view used is largely omniscient. It makes use of an omniscient narrative approach. It made use of omniscient narrative approach. That is, the narration of the text happened in the context of that the narrator is everywhere and that the narrator knows everything. But as a result of the conscience, that is the presence that we use, that is also equally used by the novelist, which made it sound at times you would hear at times you would see the heroine of the text. You will be able to relate with our voice. You will be able to. Those are the moments when it would seem to you as if that this novel was narrated using the first-person narrative technique. It wasn't. So at times when Ada is talking to herself, or when the Chi discussing with the Chi, you will see her talk. You will see her making use of first-person narrative technique. Also, another language and style is use of Nigerian vernacular terms. There are lots of local balances in the text. So you can be asked to comment on the use of Nigerian languages or use of vernacular in the text. So to make it simple and make it relatable for us, he made use of vernaculars a lot. You can see them talking about the Yoruba Bati accent. You can see them calling Rapa Lapa. All the songs that were sung in the text were sung in Igbo. You can see them referring to Koboko as king. You can see them talk about Agbada. You can see them talk about Iyawo, which is in Yoruba means wife. You can see them talk about Oke, which means old man in Igbo. You can see them talk about Opoho, which means woman. You can see them talk about Odo, which means mother. Odo is also mother in Yoruba. And you can see them refer to Hausas. You can see the Hausa call the Igbo Yamiri, and the Yoruba will call them Ajayon. These are Yoruba, and these are indigenous languages. These are vernaculars used in the text. And also we can see the use of rhetorical questions too. You will see them mostly they are used by Ada. Was Eve the only one who had the apples? Did not the man Adam hit some too? Why was it that women had to bear most of the punishment? These are questions that wouldn't be answered. These are rhetorical questions that are used at the height of Ada's feminist temper, as to why it is only a woman that had to suffer the consequences of the actions. You can also see allusions, biblical allusion. You can see references to apples, references to Bible verses, references to Word of God, and references to a host of other things. Symbolism as well. You can see the boy who has crocro. Now I told you I made mention of something about the boy who had crocro. So it is symbolic. It is symbolic, and it remained in Ada's mind for a very long time, even when she got to London. So having crocro is seen as someone who is not who is suffering, someone who is suffering, who lacks a lot of things. Looking at our time, this is 3:39. I think we have just 6 more, or less than 6 minutes. By my time, we have less than 6 minutes.
So
also,
you have less than 2 minutes.
Okay, less than 2 minutes. Okay. right? I'm trying to recall another symbolism in the text, but it seems like none is coming for now. Okay. When Ada got to England, there was a bird. That she noticed, a little gray bird that was alone. So in the course of the text, we will later realize that that bird symbolizes our way out in the near future. That is a lonely freedom. That is, in the near future, she would be free from the shackles of her husband, from the shackles of her lazy husband, and also she would she would be able to later go on to manifest her dream of being a writer, and this she was able to achieve by the time she seek for divorce after the manuscripts were born, and this would be the end of the class. This would be the end of our discussion about as regards the text. Like I used to say, if there is any question you'd like to ask through the coordinator or the host, the questions will get to me. But let me leave you with two questions. That you can you can practice. This is the first question. With a close reference to the novel, discuss Francis as a cultural bigot. And number two, examine vividly how Ada systematically denies Francis of the reader's sympathy. Again, with close reference to the novel, discuss Francis as a cultural bigot. And number two, examine vividly how Ada systematically denies Francis of the reader's sympathy. All questions, read the themes. You shouldn't expect me to ask you questions on theme. Read all the themes such that when you are asked a question on themes, it becomes a bonus. Read about all the characters such that when you are asked the question about any character, it becomes a bonus. Read on settings. Read on the language and style such that by the time you are asked about the settings, asked about the event that took place in the different areas where they lived in London, in Nigeria, here in Ibiza, you will be able to say something meaningful, and you will be able to write meaningfully well on this note. This is where we'll end the class today, and next week